Namaste. Welcome to the Advaita channel. I shall continue reading today from The Unborn by Zen Master Bankei. Reading today from The Unborn. Namaste. So today we'll conclude the introduction, looking through Bankei's life story as we come to the end of his life, and we'll hear just about the scale of his teachings and the impact on the many lives that it had. And we'll begin to hear more directly some of his pointings, which bear so much resemblance to beloved Guruji's teachings. The Ryumonji retreat ended on the 5th day of the first month. After making trips to Edo and Osaka, in late spring, Bankei sailed with Lord Matsura to the island of Hirado, one of the Lord's fiefs off the western coast of Kyushu, and stayed there until the end of the summer. The winter retreat at the Ryumonji that year was limited to several hundred of Bankei's immediate disciples, and as usual included both priests and laity. The following year, the winter meeting was held at the Gyokuruji in the Mino. According to one report, over 6,000 people took part in the 90-day retreat, which ended on the 5th day of the new year. Bankei stayed on at the Gyokuruji for a few months after the meeting had ended, and then proceeded to Edo, making several stops at temples along the way to fulfill requests for sermons. In the 5th month, he left Edo and headed back for the Ryumonji, intending to make his usual teaching stops en route. It had been an especially hot summer, and the heat was severe. At the city of Hamamatsu, the master began to show signs of illness, and he decided to make straight for home. The litter carrying Bankei entered the gates of Ryumonji on the 10th day of the 6th month. The following morning, he mentioned to one of his attendants that he would die within 2 months, but to avoid causing alarm, he forbade him to tell anyone. Among those who had been eagerly awaiting the master's return was Teikan. I will let her take up the story from here. This is from Teikan's diaries. The 10th day of the 6th month, Genroku 6, the year 1693. Master Bankei returned from Edo. He became indisposed on the way and is very weak. Everyone is deeply concerned. The next note is sermons on the 14th, 27th, 28th, 30th, and 1st of the 7th month. On the 4th day of the 8th month, he went to the western part of the main hall to meet the nuns who had gathered there. As I looked at his face, I felt my heart sink at the thought that his farewell might be our last. He just came out, met us, and then returned to his chambers. Not a word was spoken. Sermons for 3 consecutive days, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th of the 8th month. In spite of his extremely feeble condition, he spoke with great patience and great attention to detail, as if he wanted to make certain everyone would understand the essence of unborn Zen. I was struck by the extraordinary sincerity contained in each of the words he spoke. The 7th day of the 8th month. He went to his room after he had finished the sermon and remained there resting quietly. He was not seeing anyone. Everyone was asking about him in hushed and worried voices. Summer this year had been particularly hot, even into the 9th month, but it began to grow a little cooler, and I started to take hope from the thought that this would be good for him. Then, at about 8 o'clock on the 3rd day of the 9th month, word was sent to me that he had passed away. Deeply shaken, I immediately hastened to the Ryomonji. I had prepared myself for the worst, but now it was here. I could not help the tears that flowed. At the temple, I asked the head priest, Sekimon, if I could see the master and say my last earthly farewell to him. Namaste, Shakti. Certainly, he replied. I was ushered into the room where the body lay. I thought that the sight of his face would overcome me with grief. But to my surprise, my mind was completely free of all such emotion. My tears stopped completely. As I gazed intently at him, he seemed just as he had been while he was alive. It was as if he were merely sleeping. How wonderful he looked, lying there with that kind and deeply compassionate countenance. Several months prior to his death, Bankei had stopped taking food. He had refused all medicines. He spent the time speaking pleasantly with his disciples. On the day of his death, he gave them some final instructions. And when he saw signs of sadness in some of them, he said, "How do you expect to see me if you look at me in terms of birth and death?" Someone asked if he would compose a death verse traditional in the Zen school. He replied, "I've lived for 72 years. I've been teaching people for 45. What I've been telling you and others every day during that time is all my death verse. I'm not going to make another one up now, before I die, just because everybody else does it. After speaking those words, he passed away. He was in a seated position, according to one account, lying on his right side like the Buddha, according to another. His body was cremated the next day, and, in accordance with his instructions, his ashes were divided, one half placed in a funerary stupa at the Ryomonji, and one half taken to the near Hoji and put in a funerary stupa that had been built there under Bankei's direction the previous year. At the time of his death, Bankei had as personal disciples over 400 priests and monks, and more than 270 nuns, in addition to the more than 5,000 men and women of the laity who had received the precepts, making them his students. They included people from all over the country, more than a few of whom were daimyo and other men of prominent position and family, as well as many students from the peasant classes. In 1740, 47 years after Bankei's death, the posthumous title of Daiho Shogun, the true eye of the great Dharma, Kokushi, or national teacher, was bestowed upon him by Emperor Sakuramachi. So ends the introduction to Bankei's life, and now we'll actually begin to hear the Dharma talks of Zen Master Bankei. Very much recorded as our own master's pointings are recorded. He never wrote, he only spoke his teachings, and they were recorded by his disciples and his followers in very much a scenario just as we experience satsang today. So now you have some idea of the scale of this man, his teachings, and of his Sangha. The Dharma talks of Zen Master Bankei. So we begin with the Ryomonji sermons. Remember, the Ryomonji was one of his temples. In the third year of Genroku, 1690, at the time of the great winter retreat at the Ryomonji, held under Zen Master Buchi Kosai Bankei, founder of the temple, the attendance roster listed 1,683 priests. They came from all the different sects, from the two Zen schools, Soto and Rinzai, and also from the Shingon, Tendai, Jodo, Jodoshin, and Nichiren sects. Masters and novices alike, and priests of every kind and rank gathered in a great assembly around the Dharma seat. The master might very well have been taken for the Buddha himself, as the teacher of his age, and the master of all people and devas throughout the universe. When the master came and ascended to the Dharma seat, he spoke the following words to the assembled audience of priests and laity. So here we have the master's own words. I was still a young man when I came to discover the principle of the unborn and its relation to thought. I began to tell others about it. What we call a thought is something that has already fallen one or more removes from the living reality of the unborn. If you priests would just live in the unborn, there wouldn't be anything for me to tell you about it, and you wouldn't be here listening to me. But because of the unbornness and marvelous illuminative power inherent in the Buddha mind, it readily reflects all things that come along and transforms itself into them, thus turning the Buddha mind into thought. I'm going to tell those in the lay audience all about this now. As I do, I want the priests to listen along too. Not a single one of you people at this meeting is unenlightened. Right now, you're all sitting before me as Buddhas. Each of you received the Buddha mind from your mothers when you were born, and nothing else. This inherited Buddha mind is beyond any doubt unborn, with a marvelously bright illuminative wisdom. In the unborn, all things are perfectly resolved. I can give you proof that they are. While you're facing me, listening to me speak like this, if a crow cawed, or a sparrow chirped, or some other sound occurred somewhere behind you, you would have no difficulty knowing it was a crow or a sparrow, or whatever, even without giving a thought to listening to it, because you were listening by means of the unborn. If anyone confirms that this unborn illuminative wisdom is in fact the Buddha mind, and straight away lives as he is, in the Buddha mind, he becomes at that moment a living Tathagata. And he remains one for infinite kalpas in the future. Once he has confirmed it, he lives from then on in the mind of all the Buddhas, which is the reason the sect I belong to has sometimes been called the Buddha Mind sect. While you face this way, listening to me now, if a sparrow chirps behind you, you don't mistake it for a crow. You don't mistake the sound of a bell for a drum, or hear a man's voice and take it as a woman's, or mistake an adult's voice as a child's. You hear and distinguish those different sounds without making a single mistake, by virtue of the marvelous working of illuminative wisdom. This is the proof that the Buddha mind is unborn and wonderfully illuminating. None of you could say that you heard the sounds because you had made up your mind to hear them beforehand. If you did, you wouldn't be telling the truth. All of you are looking this way, intent upon hearing me. You're concentrating single-mindedly on listening. There's no thought in any of your minds to hear the sounds or noises that might occur behind you. You are able to hear and distinguish sounds when they do occur without consciously intending to hear them, because you're listening by means of the unborn Buddha mind. When people are firmly convinced that the Buddha mind is unborn and wonderfully illuminating and live in it, they're living Buddhas and living Tathagatas from then on. Buddha, too, is just a name arising after the fact. It's only the skin and shell. When you say Buddha, you're already 2 or more removed from the place of the unborn. A man of the unborn is one who dwells at the source of all the Buddhas. The unborn is the origin of all and the beginning of all. There is no source apart from the unborn, and no beginning that is before the unborn. So being unborn means dwelling at the very source of all Buddhas. If you live in the unborn, then, there's no longer any need to speak about non-extinction or undying. It would be a waste of time. So I always talk about the unborn, never about the undying. There can be no death for what has never been born. So if it is unborn, it is obviously undying. There's no need to say it, is there? You can find the expression unborn, undying here and there in the Buddha's sutras and in the recorded sayings of Zen masters. But there was never, until now, any proof or confirmation given of the unborn. People have just known the words unborn, undying. No one before has ever really understood this matter of the unborn by confirming it to the marrow of his bones. I first realized how everything is perfectly resolved by means of the unborn when I was 26 years old. And since then, for the past 40 years, I have been telling people about nothing else. I'm the first one to do this by giving the actual proof of the unborn, by showing that the unborn is the Buddha mind, and that it is always, without any doubt whatever, marvelously bright and illuminating. None of the priests or other people here at this meeting today can say that they have heard any of anyone who has done this before me. I am the first. When you are unborn, you're at the source of all things. The unborn Buddha mind is where the Buddhas of the past all attained their realization, and where future Buddhas will all attain theirs. Although we're now in the Dharma's latter days, If a single person lives in the unborn, the right Dharma flourishes in the world. There's no doubt about it. Upon confirming yourself in the unborn, you acquire the ability to see from that place of that confirmation straight into the hearts of others. The name the Zen school is sometimes given, the clear-eyed sect, stems from this. There at the place of confirmation, the Buddha's Dharma is fully achieved. Once the eye that can see others as they are opens in you, you can regard yourself as having fully achieved the Dharma, because wherever you are becomes a place of total realization. When you reach that place, no matter who you are the true successor to my Dharma. A certain priest has said, all you do is repeat the same things day after day. You ought to give your listeners a change. Their minds will be more receptive if you throw in some stories about the Zen masters of the past. Dull-witted as I am, I think if I put my mind to it, I could probably remember a couple of anecdotes to tell people. But that would be like feeding them poison. I don't want to do that. I never cite the Buddha's words or the words of Zen patriarchs when I teach. All I do is comment directly on people themselves. That takes care of everything. I don't have to quote other people. So you won't find me saying anything about either the Buddha Dharma or the Zen Dharma. I don't have to. When I can clear everything up for you by commenting directly on you and your personal concerns, right here, right now. I've no reason to preach about Buddhism or Zen. Such beautiful words this Master speaks to us. Yes. Despite the fact that you arrived in this world with nothing but an unborn Buddha mind, your partiality for yourselves now makes you want to have things move in your own way. You lose your temper, become contentious, and then you think, I haven't lost my temper. That fellow won't listen to me. By being so unreasonable, he has made me lose it. And so you fix belligerently on his words and end up transforming the valuable Buddha mind into a fighting spirit. By stewing over this unimportant matter, making the thoughts churn over and over in your mind, you may finally get your way. But then you fail in your ignorance to realize that it was meaningless for you to concern yourself over such a matter. As ignorance causes you to become an animal, what you've done is to leave the vitally important Buddha mind and make yourself inwardly a first-class animal. He doesn't spare us, huh? You're all intelligent people. It's only your ignorance of the Buddha mind that makes you go on transforming it into a hungry ghost, a fighting spirit, or an animal. You turn it into this and that, into all manner of things. And then you become things. You become those very things that you turn it into. Once you've become an animal, for example, then even when the truth is spoken to you, it doesn't get through to you. And yes, Ananda and Shakti, he does indeed chop off our heads. And for sure we don't need them. Or supposing the truth does get through to you, since you didn't retain it, even when you were a human being, you certainly won't have the intelligence as an animal to keep it in your mind. So you go from one hell or animal existence to the next, spending countless lifetimes as a hungry ghost. Or as our master says, life will prepare another belly for you. You pass through lives and existences one after another in this way, in constant darkness, transmigrating endlessly and suffering untold torment for thousands of lives through endless kalpas of time. And, during it all, you have no opportunity whatsoever to rid yourself of the burden of this evil karma. This happens to everyone when, through a single thought, they let the Buddha mind slip away from them. So you can see that it's a very serious matter indeed. So when our beloved Anantaji says, don't believe your next thought, how true to Bankei's unborn teaching is he? In that single thought, we let the Buddha mind slip away from us. Let's not buy any more thoughts. Therefore, you must thoroughly understand about not transforming the Buddha mind into other things. As I told you before, not a single one of you in attendance here today is an unenlightened person. You're a gathering of unborn Buddha minds. If anyone thinks, no, I'm not enlightened, I want him to step forward. Tell me, what is it that makes a person unenlightened? In fact, there are no unenlightened people here. Nonetheless, when you get up and begin to file out of the hall, you might bump into someone in front of you as you cross over the threshold. Or someone behind you might run into you and knock you down. When you go home, your husband, son, daughter-in-law, servant, or someone else may say or do something that displeases you. If something like that happens, and you grasp onto it and begin to fret over it, sending the blood to your head, raising up your horns, and falling into illusion because of your self-partiality, the Buddha mind turns willy-nilly into a fighting spirit. Until you transform it, you live just as you are in the unborn Buddha mind. You aren't deluded or unenlightened. The moment you do turn it into something else, you become an ignorant, deluded person. All illusions work the same way. By getting upset and favouring yourself, you turn your Buddha mind into a fighting spirit and fall into a deluded existence of your own making. So whatever anyone else may do or say, whatever happens, leave things as they are. Don't worry yourself over them. And don't side with yourself. Just stay as you are, right in the Buddha mind. And don't change it into anything else. If you do that, illusions don't occur, and you live constantly in the unborn mind. You're a living, breathing, firmly established Buddha. Don't you see? You have an incalculable treasure right at hand. You must understand about the marvelous illumination of the unborn Buddha mind. Once you have been to a certain place, you don't forget it, even after years have passed. It's easy for you to remember it. You don't always have to be keeping it consciously in mind. If someone else goes to that same place, the two of you will be able to talk about it, though you may be miles distant from it at the time. No matter where you are when you talk about it, it makes no difference. Your accounts will still be in agreement. While you're walking down a road, if you happen to encounter a crowd of people approaching from the opposite direction, none of you gives a thought to avoiding the others, yet you don't run into one another. You aren't pushed down or walked over. You thread your way through them by weaving this way and that, dodging and passing on, making no conscious decisions in this. Yet you're able to continue along unhampered, nevertheless. Now, in the same way, the marvelous illumination of the unborn Buddha mind deals perfectly with every possible situation. Suppose that the idea to step aside and make way for the others should arise spontaneously in your mind before you actually moved aside. That too would be due to the working of the Buddha mind's illuminative wisdom. You may step aside to the right or to the left because you have made up your mind to do that, but still, the movement of your feet, one step after another, doesn't occur because you think to do it. When you're walking along naturally, you're walking in the harmony of the unborn. At these meetings, all I do is to repeat the same things over and over. But that shouldn't bother you, even if you've heard them before. It doesn't matter how many times you hear them. The more often you listen, the more certain you will be of what I tell you. Every day new people come who haven't heard my talk before. Many will hear it today for the first time. I'm obliged for their sakes to explain everything once again from the start. Otherwise, coming in somewhere in the middle of the talk, it would be hard for them to follow it and to come to a real understanding of what is said. That's the reason why I say the same things day in and day out. Regular listeners will become surer of the teaching by hearing it repeated. And the new people, coming all the time, won't feel they're missing something. So each time I begin from the basics, explaining carefully and deliberately so that no one will have any trouble understanding. People are here from every part of the country, members of all 4 classes of the Buddhist community, old and young, men and women, high and low, priests and laity. I see that priests seem to make up the largest group. Well, now that you're here, if any of you think you are enlightened, no matter who you are, I want you to come forward and let me confirm it for you. I was 26 when it suddenly came to me that all things are perfectly resolved in the unborn. Since then, I've been trying to tell others about it. I've been all over, but from the time of that realization until now, I haven't found anyone, anywhere, who was a match for this tongue of mine. When I attained my realization, there wasn't any wise teacher around, or at least I didn't have occasion to meet up with him, so there was no way for me to get confirmation of my understanding. I had a very difficult time of it. I haven't forgotten the trouble I had, and so now, although I'm not well, as you can see, I have made a great vow to do my best to give confirmation to anyone who is enlightened. That's why I come here every day and meet with you all. My own health ceases to be a concern. So if anyone thinks he or she has realized something, step out here and say so. I'll confirm it for you. So I'm going to finish here, and I have a song from Omkara, The Unborn, to end our session.
you are my presence. You are my absence, and I am your presence. And where these two meet, a vanishing happens. The unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed. I am your absence, and you are my presence. You are my absence, and I am your presence. And where these two meet, a vanishing happens. The unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat. I am your absence, and you are my presence. You are my absence, and I am your presence. And where these two meet, a vanishing happens. The unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed. I am your absence, and you are my presence. You are my absence, and I am your presence. And where these two meet, a vanishing happens. The unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed. The unborn is revealed.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. I look forward to continuing reading from Bankei's Unborn next week. Sri Bankei ki jai. Sri Muji ki jai. Anantaji ki jai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Thank you.